Hi Year 11, I just want to give you some key reminders before you sit your English Literature Paper 2 exam. So the first thing that I'm going to run through quickly is just when I'm referring to assessment objectives, so the AOs, what each of those mean. So the first one we have is AO1, and that is about you answering the question. So within each of the questions there will be a kind of a keyword or phrase that you're given, and the best thing you can be doing with that is identifying that keyword or phrase and then thinking about synonyms for that keyword. And then you can refer to those throughout your response. So for example, if you've got a question about power, you could then think about synonyms for power like status, superiority, dominance, and then you can use those kind of those various words then throughout your response. So it's about answering the question. The examiners are going to want to see your understanding of the text, and a really good way that you can do that is in relation to your evidence as well, and thinking about when you're putting a quote in, when it's to do with kind of inspector calls, thinking about who says the quote, when do they say it, and then think about why are they saying it. And that's going to help you then and lead in nicely to your analysis of methods, because it's going to be thinking about why is the writer had this character say that, and that's helping you analyse methods there. And your analysis of methods, so your AO2, are so important. This is the bit that for some reason people forget about doing, or if they're going to leave any kind of AO out, it's this one, which is really kind of a silly thing to do. And this is why I'm highlighting it, to really emphasise how important it is, because it's your analysis and methods that is kind of double credited, as in you'll get kind of marked twice for it. So it's really important that you don't forget about the analysis and methods. Now, what I describe as your kind of bread and butter of analysis and methods is your analysis of words and phrases. Everyone can rely, if nothing else, you can rely on zooming in on words. That will get you, your grade 4 and 5. And to be honest, like, it can go above that. But if you want to go above those grades and you want to kind of be a 6+, you've got to start to think about other methods as well. So the exam board really like symbolism, so when one thing represents another. They also really like you thinking about tone and shifts in tone. That's really important as well for your poetry, especially the unseen section. You want to be thinking about motifs as well, so that means you're looking at a reoccurring image or idea or phrasing across a text and thinking about how it's presented at different points in the text. You want to be thinking about contrast as well. So contrast is your differences, and that may be that a character and another character contrast each other within a moment, but it may well be how a character at the beginning of the play contrasts how they are at the end of the play. So you're looking at contrast across the text as a whole. That's what your kind of higher grades are going to do. Your grade 6+ are not just going to look at contrast in a moment, they will look at contrast across the text as a whole. Another thing that you could think about are parallels. So that's your similarities. So why are characters presented in a similar way? So if there are parallels between Gerald's behaviour and Eric's behaviour, why would Priestley have wanted to do that with the young males in society? Why demonstrate that there are parallels between their kind of exploitative behaviour? And then the last one then is our AO3, which is essentially our kind of themes and our wider themes. So not just about what the question is, but those wider themes connected to it. So if you get a question on power, it's thinking maybe about how gender links to power, or how society or class links to power as well. So it's connecting wider themes to the question, and that for grade 4 or 5, that is enough to focus on themes. To go beyond that, so our kind of grade 6+, you want to be thinking about the writer's intentions. So that's things like, I'll just add in here that that's grade 6. So that's things like perhaps Priestley was trying to do what in order to do what. And kind of phrasing that you want to think about there is things like warn, challenge, incite, change, criticise. That's all kind of vocabulary that you want to use there when you're thinking about the writer's intentions. So the first section that you will get is your section A, and that is an inspector calls. Now with an inspector calls, you don't get any extract or anything, but you get 2 questions. You are only going to answer one of those questions. The reason why capital letter, changed the colour, underlined it 3 times is because every single year I say this and we still have people who try and answer both of them. You will only ever have one of them marked, so it's an absolute waste of your time to try and answer both of them. It's just not necessary at all. Now the questions that you will get, it is likely, that you will get 1 character question, and there'll be 1 theme. Now it has been the case before where we've had 2 characters or 2 themes. If you get a choice of either a character or a theme, my advice to you is to go for the theme question. The reason being then is you're not limited to 1 specific character. If you go for the character question, you've got to know that character really, really well, and you've got to have all the evidence for that 1 character across the play as a whole. Whereas if you do the theme question, then you can include ideas connected to different characters. So I would say that's making your life easier going for the theme question. Then the structure of your response, what we're going to kind of expect from you is I'm going to be looking for an introduction that kind of sets out your idea or line of argument in relation to the question. I'm going to be looking at a focus on before the inspector arrives, during the inspector's questioning. Now depending on the question, you're going to do another paragraph on during the inspector's questioning, which is why the theme question is better, because you can obviously do different characters here. Or you may find that the inspector's final speech is a good one to do there. And then lastly, after the inspector leaves, so you're basically then looking at the impact that he's had there on the family. Okay, so that's going to be your kind of focus. Some of you may have time to do a conclusion, but your most important bit is that bit there. Okay, setting out that your kind of main idea, your line of argument, and then having a paragraph on different points in the play, because that means you're looking across the text as a whole, and you're able then to think about how characters change across the text as well. That's what examiners are really wanting to see, that you can then talk about how they've changed and then why they've changed as well. Okay, that's really, really important that you can do that. So then you've got section B, and your section B is your power and conflict poetry. So for the power and conflict poetry, you will be given 1 named poem. So one of the poems from the collection are going to be given to you. You then can choose your other one, so you have your chosen poem. Okay, and then when you come to do your introduction, you've got to make sure that in that introduction you name both of the poems. So that is the named poem and whatever your chosen poem is. Now remember, within the exam paper they do provide, although you don't get all the poems, they do provide a list of all the names of the poems. So I would advise you to have a little look over them, just to kind of jog your memory about what your options are, and then you can make sure that you can choose the most relevant poem to compare to the one that they give you. So in terms of the structure of your response, we've got your introduction. I then want your first paragraph to be on the named poem. So whatever the named poem is, that's what's going to be your first paragraph. Okay? And they give you the poem. So I know there's the kind of idea that, oh, we've got so many poems to try and remember. Well, they give you one of them. So that you can kind of take the pressure off a little bit and just rely on that for this point, where you've got that to kind of use your quotations and get all your analysis and methods done with. Then you've got your chosen poem. That's going to be your next paragraph. If you can remember quotes for all that chosen poem, brilliant, and then you can analyse those methods and you can put forward ideas. If you can't remember any quotes, even if you're just putting forward ideas about that poem and talk about the wider themes, that's going to gain you marks, okay? Even if you don't put quotes in there, you are going to get more marks. Okay, so obviously the ideal situation is you compare it to another poem with quotes so you can analyse methods. But worst case scenario, talk about the ideas presented in the poem and the wider themes of that poem as well. You then go back to your named poem, and then if you have time, you can go back to your chosen poem again as well. Okay? So that's going to be how the structure goes, to ensure that you're talking about both of the poems, but the main thing is making sure that you really use the named poem that they give you to go into detail with your analysis of methods, putting the quotes there. The poem is there in front of you, so make sure you use it. Now, we have at Camden something called the Super 6. And these Super 6 poems are basically poems, and there's 6 of them, that no matter what the named poem is, I guarantee you could compare it to one of these 6 poems. So my advice to you is to focus your revision on these 6 poems. And this Super 6 PowerPoint is on the English Revision Hub as well for you to go through to practice revising quotes for them as well. So the first 2 are Ozymandias and Exposure. And together they connect to the idea of the power of nature. The next 2 we've got are London and Checking Out My History, and that is all to do with the power of people. And you could also kind of connect that to identity as well. And then the final 2 are Remains and Charge of the Light Brigade. You might not have really covered these yet, and that's okay. And that is to do with conflict, specifically kind of war conflict. So my advice is to focus your revision on those 6 poems. That's far easier than trying to learn 15 poems off by heart in terms of quotations. The named poem, you are all good enough that with that named poem you can analyse it with it right there in front of you. Your comparison poem, you're going to have these as your kind of backup to lean on and rely on in the exam, because I guarantee you, no matter what the named poem is, one of these 6 poems can be compared to it 100% in a relevant way as well. So that's really, really important that it's these 6 that you are prioritising for your revision. And for right now, where you are in the year, it's these 4 here. It's the Ozymandias, Exposure, London and Checking Out My History. They're the 4 that I want you to really, really prioritise, okay, because you might not have done these just yet. Right then, the last section, the section that I think people find kind of the most daunting or worrying, it's section C, and it is the unseen poetry. Because it's unseen, I think that's why people kind of worry about it the most, but actually it's the one where people tend to do the best. And I think you've got to have that trust in yourself that you know what you're doing, and that confidence that you can do really, really well with this one. So you're going to spend in total on the unseen about 45 minutes. So you're going to spend about half an hour on the first question in unseen, because there are 2 questions in unseen. So the first one is 24 marks, and you're going to spend about 30 minutes on it. This one, you are assessed for AO1 and AO2. That's what they're assessing you on. Now, the question tells you what the poem is about. And remember, AO1 is about your understanding of the text. So the question tells you what it's about. Therefore, you can demonstrate an understanding of the text, because that gives you a big clue about what it's about. It's also then looking at your use of quotes. You get the text in front of you. Yes, you've not been taught it in a lesson before, but you get the text in front of you. So use the quotes that they're giving you as well. Making sure that you're answering the question. Now, something that we've really seen with this is having a kind of, having kind of empathy, as in understanding how other people might feel and why they're feeling that way, why they have that view on things. The examiners want to hear your opinions. They want to see what you think of these poems and your understanding of them and your interpretations of them. So really think about what that person is kind of has gone through or is going through, and their experiences and why they feel the way that they do. So thinking about empathy, thinking about feelings, that's really come through recently. That's a more kind of updated idea than has been previously, in terms of this is what they're really wanting to see there. Now for your AO2, for your methods, I really want you thinking about how does the poem begin, and how does the poem begin, and then how does the poem end, and connect those ideas to tone there. Are there kind of similarities in the tone across the text, or is there contrast? And why might that be? So that's a really good starting point. How does the poem begin? How does the poem end? And then similarly to what I've said about the other literature texts, the things that, the kind of methods that they want to see you talking about, definitely, and this connects to the idea of empathy and feelings, is the speaker in the poem. The writer and the speaker are different people. Okay, who is the speaker? What is the speaker feeling? How do we know that? So talk about the speaker and the kind of voice in the poem and what they're trying to get across. Other methods, same as what I said for in spectacles and for poetry. Symbolism, motifs, any kind of shifts. Words and phrases can always be relied on as well. Okay, that's what they're wanting to see there. You talking about those things. And then finally, we've got the last part, the unseen. So that's kind of, and this one it is out of 8 marks. So you're going to spend about 15 minutes on it. And the way that you're going to do this, because this is only assessing you on AO2 analysis of methods. That's the only assessment objective you are assessed on for this question here. So what the examiners, and basically by this point you want to make it easier for the examiner to see exactly what you're doing and to get the marks for it. So essentially what you're going to do is you're going to kind of talk about poem 1, because you've got to talk about both poems in this, so whatever the name of the poem is. So in this poem, the writer uses, tell me what method it is. Is it personification? Is it symbolism? Is it a motif? Is it contrast? What tone? And then when you've done that, you're going to do the effect. Then you're going to do that again for the second poem. And you're just going to do that on repeat until you're running out of time. Remember, with literature, especially in your first two sections and then the first question in section C, you've got to build through the levels. So you've got to make sure that you are writing enough to make sure you're building through the levels. The most important thing is addressing the AOs needed in each of the paragraphs, and you keep on going. Use all of the time. Remember, these exams are not designed for you to have lots of time left at the end. It's all about those marginal gains. Every mark matters because that is the difference between grades. Remember that, okay? On language, it was the difference of 5 marks between each of the grades on that one paper. So you've got to make sure you are getting every single mark possible, so you're working right until the end of the time in the exam. No one should be resting. Even if you're not writing, you need to be checking your work. That is so important. Is there an opportunity to analyse a word that you've missed? Have you missed out labelling what the method is? Is there actually another theme you could connect to that writer's intentions? You should be working hard right until the very end to get every single mark possible.